So, welcome back. We're with Amy Colvin, and we're talking about cultivating compassionate balance. And before the break, we were talking about internal energy, and I would like to know how we cultivate that and why it's so important to cultivate that.
Well, I think that the reason why it's important, first of all, is by allowing our own internal energy. And again, by that, I just mean the equivalent of like chi or vital energy, whatever you want to call it. We're energetic beings, that thing that makes us lively. So in order to experience the richness of life to the best that we can, there's value in being lively. There's value in being vital. And that's where the value then comes in of cultivating that internal energy. So you can cultivate that internal energy by moving, like we've talked about, but also in contrast to that, being willing to just be. Taking time out from our busy lives and take time to just be, so that all of that energy can just build up. And then when you're ready to go run out there and be outward facing in the world again, you have more of that energy to cruise around your life with. Does that make sense?
So, yes, but let's go a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
What does that mean to just take time out and be? Like,
Okay.
what is that?
Well, meditation.
Stop doing.
It's about making a choice. So that's a huge part around meditation. One of the things I hear from my students all the time is, I don't have time. You want me to listen to these 20-minute guided video or guided audio meditations? I don't have time. And it's like, okay, well, what are you doing with your time? How much time do you spend on Facebook? How much time do you spend playing games on your phone? How much time do you spend watching television? Can you carve out 20 minutes to sit down and just be present with yourself?
There you go. Right?
And did that answer it for you?
Well, I already knew the answer, but I'm just saying, the reason I asked the question is because people listening will go, what does that mean to just be?
Yeah. Yeah. Right? So, and again, too, from the some thought perspective, the idea of just being is not only present moment awareness, as is taught in so many different meditation styles, but it's also that ability to focus on the heart, stay connected to the body, and really let the mind settle into the background. And not, again, not needing to label the thoughts, not eventually, and there are some really, really great tools for people who are new to meditation. Things like counting the breath, things like saying mantras. All of those are really useful tools, but eventually you can get to a point where maybe you don't need those tools and you can simply sit in silence and not think about anything. Or, when you do get lost in thought, recognize to come back to the breath, come back to the heart.
And just release the thoughts. If you release it and don't get it, even if you get attached, then you go, oh, I'm attached, let it go.
Right. And the other thing too is that I like about this movement aspect of some thought is that the more we get in touch with how we feel in our bodies, the more we can really begin to understand quickly what strong emotions feel like. Anger might feel different than grief, might feel different than joy. And I know from my own personal experience that once I finally figured out what depression felt like, I could feel it coming on and I could make change before my brain got stuck there. Because I used to suffer from situational depression a lot, and I don't anymore at all because of this style of meditation. And it's amazing to be, or another example was something had happened in my world that, was frustrating and angry and scary and all of that stuff. And I sat with it for a while over, 2 or 3 days. And what I finally realized when I got my brain out of the way and started listening to how my body felt, I realized I was sad. And what happened was that this whole thing that blew up was because I had been misunderstood. And it made me really sad. And that helped me release it and let it go far more than hanging on to anger or being angry about it. And if it weren't for the fact that I have this practice of checking in with my body, what does this feel like? How, my stomach feels a little weird and my heart feels a little weird. What is that? Oh, it's sadness. So that's part of what we cultivate in the sun thought practice as well, is just building our awareness of what's going on in our bodies so that we can address those strong emotions that much more quickly and then release them and let them go without hanging on to them.
So I have a very basic question here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there always a purpose to your meditation? So if I'm going to sit down on a daily basis, do I have to have a reason? Because my mind is going, okay, so what am I going to focus on today? What is my purpose for sitting still for 20 minutes? Does there have to be one?
Okay, that's a really great question. For me, the purpose or the why is because it helps me feel good. And in terms of, do I sit down with an intention or a reason? Absolutely not. I guess the intention is to help myself slow down so that when I am going, I can be more present and have more energy to do with what I want. But do I sit down and have, when I sit down on a daily basis, do I sit there and think to myself, okay, this is my reason for doing this? Mm-hmm. No, I know from years of experience of not doing it regularly and doing it regularly that I am far less reactive and far more responsive when I meditate. Mm-hmm. I am more able to listen well and compassionately when I meditate more often than when I'm not meditating. I find that I feel really good in my body when I meditate on a regular basis versus when I'm not. So there's nothing I'm aspiring towards other than I want to feel really good in body and mind and spirit. And that's why I do this.
So I guess that's awesome. I love that answer. But then again, when you were having that problem, when you realized you were sad, that there was a sadness, and actually I think the sadness that you recognized came through when you were meditating, is that correct?
Not so much specifically when I was meditating, but because I have this habit now of being responsive rather than reactive, and because I have this habit of seeing what's going on in my body, it wasn't an aha or an epiphany that came up in meditation, but it was because of my meditation practice over time that I was able to come to that epiphany. I think I was just sitting in my office getting ready to type something. And I went, oh, I'm sad. And I went downstairs and I sat down next to my husband on the couch and I said, you know what? I'm really sad. And he gave me a big hug. And then I let it go.
I guess what I'm trying to get down to is, if let's say, like Roger, you've been really frustrated with things going on, building your house and so forth like that. Is there benefit then when life is out of control or causing chaos? Is there benefit then to taking yourself and taking that issue into meditation to work with it in some way?
Okay, so I would say that's a really great question, and I'm glad you posed it in that way, Janet. I would say rather than taking it into the meditation, know that you're frustrated, know that, building houses is really freaking hard work. We've done it. And especially when you're not getting the right supplies from your supplier or whatever it is. But when you go in to sit down for that 15 minutes to meditate, whether you're sitting or whether you're moving, Leave that aside and just be with yourself in that moment. And if you notice that frustration coming up, say, hey, I see you, I hear you, I acknowledge you, I'll give you a hug. But right now you need to sit over there, and I'm just going to come back to feeling what it feels like in my body, to being with my breath,
Good.
to connecting to that divine within. And then after the meditation, pick up that whole mental piece around the frustration and see if you can look at it differently. See if your perspective has changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than coming into a meditation with the intention of resolving something, simply let whatever it is that needs to be resolved sit beside you, but not be present for you in that moment. Meditate for a while. When you're done meditating, come back to it, and maybe you have a new perspective. Meditation allows us to have that different perspective so that we can detach from issues or accept things more easily. And again, that whole process of slowing down. Sometimes the reason why we get so frustrated is because we get so spun up about needing to go really quickly. And society tells us we have to go really quickly. And by taking some time out on a regular basis to just slow down, begin to unwind that whole process of moving so fast.
So it's through this becomes a practice then.
Yes.
Something that I'm going to do just because I'm spun out. It's something that I'm doing on a consistent basis that is kind of raising my ability to get into compassion or calmness. As opposed to I'm now all anxious and now I'm going to go into it.
Yeah. And
right?
so rather than, it's not a pill. It's not a quick fix. And I tell you, some of the students that I teach, that's what they want. They want that pill, and it still amazes me. I should move into a stage where it shouldn't amaze me, but people pay to come be with me for 8 weeks, and my aspiration for all of them, and we talk about it in the beginning, is there are thematic guided meditations that go with each week. Please go home and listen to them. Even if that means you're listening to them in the car while you're commuting, you're listening to them while you're walking on the treadmill or through the forest, whatever it is, just listen, because the lessons in that will continue reinforcing new outlooks and new perceptions. And many students don't do that.
What might some of the themes be through those 8 weeks? Is it always the same, or is it something that's based on?
Yeah, so the course, the 8-week course that I teach, I also teach it in an intensive weekend, is called Cultivating Compassionate Balance. And basically, this is how the flow of the 8 weeks. The first week is just sort of an overview. Here's some tools and techniques to actually get that busy mind to settle down. Here's some real basics of meditation if you've never meditated before. Again, going back to the idea of counting breaths as a tool. Week 2 is about self-appreciation, not in an ego-oriented way, but lots of people really don't like themselves very much. And so it's working with helping people appreciate who they are from the inside out. The third week is about self-acceptance. Not only do people not really like themselves very much, a lot of people judge themselves very harshly for things that they have done or do. And so we're working with haven't done. So we're working with self-acceptance. And then the following week, we move into self-compassion. And then through those first 4 weeks, we've started to lay down this lovely foundation of I'm okay and I like me. And I part of that process is learning how to work with your inner critic, that little voice that comes up. And so we talk about ways and techniques to work with that inner critic. And then from there, we move into compassion for loved ones. And then the following week, we broaden that out to compassion for all of humanity. People you know, people you don't know well, people you find to be really challenging. How in the world do you extend compassion to someone you find to be really challenging? We work with that. We talk about that. Week 7 is a form of meditation where we really practice extending wishing well to other people. And then the eighth week is just sort of a wrap up and a last opportunity to ask questions and, what did you guys really like and not like, and how can I help support you in moving forward? So that's what the 8 weeks are. Mm-hmm. And then within that 8 weeks, then there is that foundation. It's sitting on top of the foundation of some thought meditation. But like I said, it also rolls in current research. It rolls in contemporary psychology. Mm-hmm. And it has an opportunity, again, for large group discussion, small group discussion. And one of the things, another aspect for your listeners, which I think is really cool, is I do teach this class online. And so it's just like what we're doing here with the 3 of us, except there might be, 10 people in class. Mm-hmm. It's fully interactive. Everybody has a chance to speak, just as we are watching here, whoever mm-hmm. speaks, their face pops up big. And I am finding that those classes online are the ones that are really, really rich.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're here in this little part of Western Washington. Our listeners are across the world, and yet they can still participate in this via an online sort of training. I like that.
Yeah.
And you have a training coming up?
I do, actually, starting the first week in April. Mm-hmm. Monday nights will be in in Redmond, Washington. Tuesday nights are online, and the Tuesday night online classes run 5:30 to 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. And then Thursday, I'm teaching in Mount Vernon, Washington.
Okay.
And our neck of the woods up here.
Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
I want to get back to something, Janet, that you asked a few minutes ago about when you find something frustrating, and do you go into meditation and work with that? And my response, first thought was, yeah, tequila works really well. But the second thing is, and I think this applies to anything in our life. It's like what works for me when I get into that place is to be in the moment. Like, what do I have to do next? Right? Mm-hmm. Like we were discussing before we came on the air here about how frustrated I was about I thought I was going to be able to do this. Now I might have to do that, but I got to find out about this. And then, and what it does is it just makes you crazy. And we all do that no matter what situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
The only way I'm going to know if I do this over here is to do the work over here first. You can't see my hands, but over on the right side, if I do that first, then I'll have the answer, and then I can take the next step rather than thinking, oh shit, this is falling apart. I have to do this. And then it just escalates. So for me, that's how I handle it. Just, okay, what needs to be done next? Like in the very next
net effect of all of this is, building up and building up over time. And if you have no way to work through this energy, then I think then you carry over that frustration, then you take it into your families, or you take it into your loved ones, or you take it out to, your friends. And
but you can also apply that to if you're engaging with someone in your family. It's like, mm-hmm. You can blow things up, or you can just go, yeah, okay, so what do we have to do right now? What do we have to talk about right now? What do we, and it's like, we hear it and it's so simple. We make things so much more complicated than we need to. Life is very simple. It's just the next step.
Yeah. Right. And again, that comes back to that ability to learn how to respond rather than react.
I love that. Respond rather than react. That's huge anyway, right? Because it's only in that space. If you even just taking a breath before you speak sometimes gives you just that moment to say, okay, wait a minute, am I responding or am I reacting? And now I can bring consciousness to the plate. I can, choose what I'm going to say or how I'm going to be, instead of just
or you react, and then and right after you react, you go, oh shit, I was reacting.
Maybe I should have done that. Maybe I should have thrown that plate at his head.
Right.
Not done that. Just kidding.
Anyway, so I think what we should do here is bring it into this part of the discussion, because when we after the break, we're going to come back and do a small hand meditation. Is that right?
It's called a mudra
A
meditation.
mudra.
A
What do you call
mudra
a
meditation.
mudra meditation?
Right. So, yeah. So, Amy, can you give us, give the listeners a way to get a hold of you, your website, whatever contact, Facebook?
Sure. So my website is www.compassionatebalance.com. And if you're interested in subscribing, there's a link to be able to subscribe to a newsletter there. Maybe it comes out every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, talking about upcoming courses, tips, techniques, that kind of thing. My email address is Amy, A-M-Y, at compassionatebalance.com. And then my Facebook page, if you go onto Facebook and you just do a search for Compassionate Balance Meditation, you'll find my my page there as well.
Great.
Nice.
Oh, and I want to also offer, if you do a search for my name, Amy, A-M-Y, Colvin, C-O-L-V-I-N, Compassion Meditation on YouTube. I also do have a YouTube channel, and there are guided meditations there that give you a sample of my style, and they're also just really helpful. And I'm trying to put up, a new one every week or two.
Yeah, I actually clicked on them yesterday because I wanted to make sure it was your voice, not just, somebody talking, this meditation. So it's actually you, and you have a really great voice for leading people in meditation. I was really impressed with how easily and calmly you went into it. It was great.
Good. Do you remember which one you did or listened to?
It's the very first one, and it's a picture of a lotus flower, and so I started through that one, and
nice.
Just because I had to make sure it was your voice.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody should make sure, if they don't remember your website, when they do a search for you, to use Google and not any other search engine.
That makes all the difference.
That's right.
It does indeed.
Or they can come right back to your page, Empower You Media, and look at past speakers, and you'll find all that info in my bio.
You're really good, Amy. That was really good.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so what we're going to do is take another break, and when we come back, Amy's going to lead us through a mudra meditation, and this is great because this is a recording, so people can take this and work with this meditation. So we'll be right back.